state budget. What would you do to address this? I presume the questioner sees it as a problem, and I wonder if the audience would agree with that, but let's see what the candidates think. Now we started with you last time, David, so it's Chris up first.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, Medicaid is the fastest growing part of the state budget. What would you do to address this?
Is the question, and I'm unclear, is the question, would I cut Medicaid?
I think the question is, at least as I'm interpreted from the audience, and maybe the person who asked the question wants to clarify even more for us, Medicaid is eating up a significant portion of the state's budget at a time of cutting and questions about raising taxes. Do you have a view on how we can address our Medicaid problem if it's the question seems to presume it's a problem from the budget perspective?
Okay. I would say, and I would go back to what I said before, is that if you look at the deficit problems and where the deficit problems came from, that is what the discussion should be on. To try to take money out of the Medicaid program is taking money away from people that need those services the most. Safety net for the elderly, the sick, the children, and lower income people is being decimated by cuts to Social Security, Medicaid, food stamps, home keeping assistance, etc., etc. I got a statistic that the infant mortality rate for African American infants is 2 times higher than for white. Now, I'm sorry, that is because they do not have access to health care. And we should not be looking at cutting back on services to our most vulnerable population. We have to be able to provide for them and figure out a way of making income and revenue coming from other sources, not by taking away services to our most vulnerable people.
Okay. On this issue of Medicaid, I'm getting up in that group that may be interested in taking part in that. And that's certainly not like to have my benefits cut. As for young people, most people don't have much say in this. I think we have to look at that seriously and actually redirect revenues that we're already short on into that program to carry it through these hard times. We're just got to be socially responsible on this one. That's my idea.
I think that Medicaid is so important. When you have people that have life-threatening chronic diseases, and they may not be able to work anymore because of that, you can't cut services to them. It's just not part of our core Wisconsin values, and it's not something that we want to do in our state. I think if we wanted to look for savings, I would say maybe investigate possibilities of fraud or waste within the system, but we can't cut Medicaid for people that have life-threatening diseases.
I thought that the Republicans made very clear the Democratic position on Medicare and Medicaid, and that we were supposed to be establishing death panels. But that didn't happen, so now you see the situation we're in. One of the problems that we look at with the failure of universal health care, everyone was pointing out, oh, all the people are going to be abusing the system, look what will happen to it. Well, there are already thousands and thousands of people on Medicare and Medicaid. What universal health care would have done was entered in the largest uninsured group, the 18 to 35-year-olds, the 50+ million of us, who could be contributing to this cause to make the problem go away and disappear. As far as what we can do to lessen the costs, short of building a Wisconsin retirement home in Florida, I don't know that there is something. We actually don't even have to look at the bottom line. This is something that people are guaranteed, and this is what we need to do for the weakest members of our society and those that need our care. I'm very proud of you, Mr. Childs, to be able to be so comfortable that you might someday consider wanting to be on Medicare. But there are many, many people, including my parents, who don't have an option. This is what they're looking at. So to talk of cutting it is unconscionable to me.
Would anyone like to follow up?
I just have one other comment. The other thing that needs to be put on the table when we have this discussion is that, okay, here is the expense that it's costing us right now to cover these people, these vulnerable people. But what in the long term is going to be the expense if we take those services and we take that away? It's going to end up tripling the amount of money that the citizens in this state are going to have to pay, because people are not going to be getting preventative care. They're not going to be getting care when they need it. It's going to wait till it's an emergency situation, and it's going to cost us way more than that. So you have to look at this and say, okay, do we do a short-term fix and put a Band-Aid on it? Or are we going to look at it in the big picture and see what is it that we need to do to make this work and make this economically a solution for this state and this country?
Okay, another question from the audience.